Long ago, when the shifting sands of Mesopotamia still whispered the first stories of kings, two great rivers stretched their arms across the land and cradled a city that glimmered beneath the desert sun. Babylon did not simply sit upon the earth. It seemed to rise from it, shimmering in the heat like a vision brought to life. Travelers approaching from distant villages would glimpse its walls hours before they reached its gates, marveling at how the bricks caught the light and changed from gold to copper as the day wandered toward dusk. They felt the hum of life even at a distance, hearing faint echoes of market chatter carried on the warm wind and smelling, against all odds, the sweetness of dates that ripened in orchards beyond the city's edge. To those weary wanderers, Babylon looked less like stone and more like promise and possibility. As the road drew closer, dusty plains transformed into lush fields carved by irrigation channels that branched away from the great Euphrates River. These canals glittered beneath the sun, guiding clear water past orderly rows of barley, wheat, and flax. Farmers in loosely woven linen bent over the earth, their laughter floating like birdsong as they called to one another across the furrows. The gentle rustle of palm fronds overhead created a soft canopy of sound, and the air was perfumed by newly turned soil mixed with the sweet scent of ripening melons. That sudden shift from arid wilderness to fertile abundance struck every traveler as a modest miracle, one born not only of nature's generosity, but also of human ingenuity refined over generations. It was impossible to miss the walls once one left the fields behind. Babylon's fortifications stood colossal and silent, glowing with a glaze the color of the deepest twilight. Each brick had been fired until it hardened like ceramic, then set with care to form patterns that caught and reflected sunlight. The walls were so wide that local storytellers insisted 2 chariots could race upon them side by side without a horsehair's distance between their wheels. Massive towers dotted the ramparts at deliberate intervals, watching the desert beyond with patient vigilance. At dawn, these towers glowed rose gold. At noon, they blazed almost white. At dusk, they sank into violet shadows that made them look as though they belonged to the sky rather than the ground. Of all these portals, none inspired more awe than the majestic Ishtar Gate, dedicated to the goddess of love and war. Its vibrant blue glaze, derived from pulverized lapis lazuli, shone like a summer sky captured in brick. Rows of molded lions paced along the lower courses, their manes sharply ridged, their eyes forever fixed on an unseen horizon. Above them, bulls and dragon, symbols of divine guardianship, marched in solemn procession. When sunlight struck the gate at the perfect angle, the creatures seemed to stir, and visitors felt an almost living pulse emanating from the wall itself. Passing beneath that vaulted archway was less an entrance and more a transition, a ceremonial shedding of dust and worry before stepping into a realm devoted to art, ritual, and knowledge. Inside, a grand processional avenue stretched straight and proud, its smooth paving stones worn by countless footsteps, yet still warm beneath bare soles. Stalls lined the road under patchwork awnings of woven reeds, their vendors calling out a multilingual chorus that rose in waves each time a new group of travelers arrived. Jars of fragrant sesame oil sat beside heaps of shimmering turquoise beads. Bolts of dyed wool fluttered beside baskets brimming with figs so ripe they seemed ready to burst. The mingled aromas of baking bread, roasted lamb, and sweet wine lingered in the afternoon haze, inviting passers-by to pause and taste Babylon itself. Beyond the thrumming market, temples of sun-baked brick climbed skyward tier after tier, culminating in the monumental ziggurat known as Etam-Enanke, believed to link Earth with the heavens. Pilgrims ascended its broad stairways slowly, each step a whispered prayer offered to Marduk, patron deity of the city. High atop the towering shrine, priests tracked the slow dance of the stars, observing planets whose movements they carefully etched into clay tablets. Even at street level, the presence of learning was unmistakable. Rows of scribes squatted outside smaller sanctuaries, stylus poised, pressing cuneiform signs into fresh tablets that would one day outlast empires. Yet for all its splendor, Babylon was ultimately a city shaped by human hands. None left a deeper impression than King Nebuchadnezzar II. His reign in the 6th century before the Common Era marked a period when architecture became both political statement and personal expression. Through conquest, he safeguarded Babylon's borders, but through building, he secured its legend. He expanded defensive walls until they encircled the city like an unbreakable embrace, raised palaces whose painted ceilings sparkled with crushed gemstone dust, and restored holy sanctuaries so that every god of every quarter might feel honored. It is within this grand tapestry of ambition and devotion that whispers of the Hanging Gardens began to take root. Chroniclers tell a tale of Nebuchadnezzar's queen Amytis, born among the cool, misty mountains of Media, while Babylon's wealth dazzled her eyes. Its unrelenting heat pained her heart, reminding her daily of verdant valleys left behind. Sensing her quiet sorrow, the king vowed to recreate those distant hills in the very center of his capital. Whether out of love, political alliance, or a ruler's simple desire to prove nothing was impossible, Nebuchadnezzar summoned engineers, stonemasons, and gardeners to weave landscape and architecture into one seamless miracle. Imagine their challenge: to elevate a mountain of fertile soil atop vaulted stone chambers, to coax, cypress, juniper, and almond trees to flourish beneath a merciless sun, to raise water from the river's slow pulse far below, up onto terraces higher than the tallest city walls. Some later writers spoke of hidden screws turned by men walking endless circles, others of chain pumps driven by beasts in shaded corridors. Whatever the method, water would have had to climb day and night, a liquid lifeline sustaining every leaf. Yet no stone from those gardens has survived in Babylon's ruins. Not one broken pillar, not one clay tablet naming the architect, no roots petrified in time. Some scholars point north toward Nineveh, claiming the Assyrian king Sennacherib was the true builder. Others suggest Greek historians embellished an ordinary royal park into a legendary wonder. But just as desert mirages reflect villages that never were, so too can human longing conjure visions that thrive solely in memory and story. Tonight, though, we set doubt aside. We choose to believe in the rustle of unseen leaves, in water falling like rain upon sun-drenched brick, in a queen whose homesickness inspired a feat so breathtaking it would echo across centuries. We walk forward under fading daylight, our steps soft upon the avenue as stalls close and torches flicker to life. Somewhere behind high walls draped in green, a secret mountain waits. The sky darkens to a deep violet, and the first stars shimmer above Babylon's ziggurat. As nocturnal breezes carry the river's cool breath through narrow lanes, we turn down a quieter alley. The distant murmurs of the marketplace ebb, replaced by the subtle whisper of leaves and a faint, persistent trickle of water just beyond a towering archway. We pause at its threshold, sensing the transformation ahead. Beyond this point lies a dream made tangible, where architecture cradles earth and earth cradles sky. With a slow, calming breath, we step through, ready to ascend the first terrace of the Hanging Gardens. Passing under the archway, we enter a space where the air itself feels transformed. The dry warmth of the city streets is replaced by a gentle coolness that clings to the skin, as though the very atmosphere has been filtered through leaves. The soundscape shifts too. Instead of the sharp ring of a merchant's hammer, or the bleating of goats in the marketplace, there is the low, even murmur of water moving over stone, punctuated by the faint chatter of unseen birds. The contrast is so complete that for a moment it feels as though we have stepped not into another part of Babylon, but into another world entirely. Before us spreads the first terrace, broad, level, and open to the sky. The ground beneath our feet is paved with stone slabs, their surfaces worn smooth and faintly cool despite the day's heat, thanks to the protective canopy above. Towering date palms rise from deep beds of soil, their trunks a textured braid of old fronds, their crowns swaying in slow conversation with the wind. Between them, clusters of lilies unfurl like pale stars against the darker green. The blossoms lean toward the light, their white petals tinged with the faintest blush of pink at the edges. Low stone channels border each planting bed, their water so clear we can see the polished pebbles lining the bottom. Every so often, a tiny fish darts through the current, its silver scales flashing in the light. The sound of this water, steady and soft, is like a heartbeat for the terrace. A reminder that every leaf, every petal here depends on the quiet labor of unseen hands and unseen machines. In the air, the mingled fragrances of date blossoms and lilies weave together, subtle and sweet, never overpowering. As we move along the main path, we pass beneath arching boughs of tamarisk trees. Their feathery leaves shift restlessly, filtering sunlight into a gentle shimmer that dances on the paving stones. Here and there, clay jars stand tucked into shady corners, each filled with cool water for gardeners or visitors to drink. The clay holds the chill, and lifting a jar to the lips offers a taste of the river far below. Carried up for the same purpose as the water in the channels, to nourish life where nature did not intend it. The sounds deepen as we draw closer to the terrace's far wall. A fountain is set into the masonry, its centerpiece a lion's head carved from a block of stone so finely worked that the mane seems to ripple. Water spills constantly from its open mouth into a round basin, the surface disturbed by slow, concentric rings that spread outward to meet the carved rim. Above the lion's head, a small arch shelters it from the sun. An ivy climbs toward that shade, curling around the stone as though drawn to its protection. We pause near the basin to listen. Behind the splashing, other sounds emerge. The faint rustle of palm fronds overhead, the low trill of a bird settling into a branch, the distant call of another from somewhere deeper in the gardens. In this sheltered space, the noises of the city beyond the walls have all but vanished. We are left with a music shaped entirely by water, wind, and life. A row of stone benches lines one side of the terrace, each worn smooth by countless visitors. From here, looking outward over the terrace's edge, the view extends across the rooftops of Babylon, broken by the distant line of the river. The late afternoon light softens everything it touches, turning the baked brick of the city into shades of gold and rose. Smoke rises in thin spirals from cooking fires, carrying with it scents of bread and roasted meat, reminders of the bustling life outside this sanctuary. Moving toward the far corner, we notice a wall half hidden beneath a curtain of creeping vines. The leaves are broad and heart-shaped, their glossy surfaces catching the light like mirrors. The tendrils dangle in clusters, some reaching almost to the stone floor. Here and there, tiny blossoms peep from among the leaves, pale lavender in color, releasing a faint fragrance when brushed by the wind. Behind this living screen lies the staircase to the next terrace. The steps are wide and shallow, their surfaces smooth by centuries of climbing feet. As we begin to ascend, the scent of the first terrace begins to mingle with something new, a sharper freshness, tinged with the green bite of herbs. The sound changes too, the single lion's fountain giving way to the layered murmur of more water sources above. Our hands trail along the cool stone of the wall as we climb, feeling the faint tremor of water moving within. Halfway up, we pause to turn back. From this angle, the first terrace reveals its full design. The symmetry of the planting beds, the precision of the channels, the balance of open space and shaded grove. It is both an engineered marvel and a living work of art. Beyond it, the city stretches toward the horizon, its colors softened by the haze of the setting sun. This view alone could be enough to call the journey complete, and yet above us, the second terrace waits. As we near the top of the stairs, the scent of herbs grows stronger, joined now by a hint of something floral and unfamiliar. Perhaps a plant brought here from far beyond Babylon's borders. The air feels cooler, as though shaded by a denser canopy. We hear the distinct splash of water falling into a pool, sharper and clearer than the gentle burble below. The threshold between terraces is close. One final step, and the first terrace lies behind us. Ahead, framed by an arch of greenery, is the second terrace, promising new colors, new scents, and new shapes. The light here seems softer still, filtered through leaves we have yet to see. With the city far below and the path ahead hidden just enough to stir curiosity, we step forward into the next chapter of the gardens. The air changes immediately as we pass beneath the arch of leaves into the second terrace. The light here is dimmer, softened by a high canopy of interwoven branches that sway gently in the breeze. It is the sort of light that painters of later ages might have tried to capture, not full sunlight, but a shifting interplay of gold and green that moves slowly across stone and soil. The heat of the day has been tamed in this place,
and the air is cooler,
carrying with it a mingled perfume of blossoms and fresh-cut greenery. The path beneath our feet narrows slightly, curving through beds planted with herbs and flowers in careful arrangements. Here's a cluster of basil, its leaves broad and glossy, releasing their sharp scent when brushed by the hand of a passing gardener. There is a stretch of coriander, its delicate leaves swaying beside taller stalks of fennel, whose feathery crowns nod with the wind. Between the herbs, roses climb trellises set at intervals, their petals in shades from cream to deep crimson. To our left, a grove of fig trees rises. They're low, spreading branches offering pockets of deep shade. The figs themselves hang heavy and full, their skin darkening toward ripeness. Some have fallen to the soft earth, where their sweetness perfumes the air and draws bees to feast. The sound of those bees, a low, steady hum, joins the other quiet voices of the terrace, blending into a single, calming rhythm. Ahead, a stream of water winds through the terrace, following a course that seems both natural and deliberate. Its bed is lined with smooth stones, each chosen for shape and size, and the water's surface catches bits of sunlight that filter through the canopy. At certain points, the stream pools slightly, creating miniature ponds where reeds grow at the edges, and small fish dart in the shallows. We pause beside one of these pools, leaning down to watch as a pair of dragonflies skim the water's surface, their translucent wings catching flashes of color from the light above. Nearby, the air is richer with the scent of mint that grows thick along the water's edge, its leaves spilling over the stones as though eager to follow the current. A faint breeze moves through, carrying with it a layered fragrance, part floral, part herbal, and something else we cannot name. The walls of this terrace are not bare stone. They are dressed in living green, vines climbing upward toward unseen heights. The leaves here are larger, their surfaces glossy, reflecting the shifting light. Small flowers peek through in shades of white and pale yellow, and as we move closer, we can see the way their roots have been tucked carefully into pockets of soil held between the stones. It is clear that no part of this garden is left to chance. Along the far wall, partly concealed behind a curtain of hanging branches, a shaded alcove invites rest. Inside is a bench of carved wood, its surface smooth from years of use. From here, the view stretches across the terrace toward the steps we climbed, offering a different perspective on the greenery below. The sound of the stream is more distinct here, joined by the faint splash of water falling somewhere above, out of sight. Rising from the bench, we continue along the path until it bends sharply toward the center of the terrace. Here, the ground opens into a small clearing where sunlight falls more directly. And in that warm pool of light stands a single pomegranate tree. Its branches arch outward, heavy with fruit, their skin a glossy red that hints at the jewel-like seeds within. Around its base, the soil is soft and dark, fed by a narrow rivulet that circles the trunk before running off to join the main channel. Near the pomegranate tree, a set of steps begins, narrower than the first staircase, but built with the same smooth, wide stone. The steps rise gently at first, then curve out of sight around a wall thick with ivy. As we approach, we hear a new sound, the turning of wood, the creak of something moving with deliberate force. The scent in the air changes too, growing sharper, cooler, carrying with it a hint of dampness that suggests more water above. We begin to climb, our hand brushing the leaves of the ivy as we go. The steps are cool underfoot, shaded almost entirely by the canopy. Through narrow gaps in the foliage, the city appears far below, its noise muted to a distant hum. The terraces we have already walked seem part of another world now, smaller and more delicate than they felt when we stood upon them. Near the top of the stairs, the wall opens into a landing, where the breeze flows more freely. From here, a narrow window in the greenery reveals a glimpse of the Euphrates, winding slowly under the warm light of late afternoon. The reflection of the sun dances on its surface, sending threads of light back toward us as if in greeting. One last step carries us upward, and the second terrace falls away behind. Before us lies the third terrace, brighter, more open, and filled with the sound of water being lifted from depths unseen. The hum of life is stronger here, a sign that we are nearing the hidden machinery that makes the hanging gardens possible. The first thing that greets us on the third terrace is sound, deeper, fuller than the gentle streams and fountains below. It is the measured rhythm of something mechanical, turning with patient precision, as if the garden itself breathes through wooden lungs. Beneath the soft chorus of rustling leaves, the creak of beams and the steady clink of water meeting stone form an underlying cadence, a heartbeat that never stops. This terrace feels more open to the sky. Canopy here is broken in places, allowing generous shafts of light to spill onto the paths. In the brighter corners, flowering shrubs have been planted to take full advantage of the sun. Hibiscus with blooms the color of rubies, oleanders with pale creamy petals that sway gently in the warm air. The combination of light and shadow makes the space feel alive in a different way, like a room with its windows thrown wide. Along the inner wall, partly screened by a hedge of aromatic bay laurel, we see the source of the sound, a great water lifting device. Wooden wheels taller than a man, turn slowly as a chain of small clay buckets moves upward from some unseen depth below. Each bucket, once filled, empties itself into a stone-lined trough, sending the water flowing into channels that spread across the terrace in a network as intricate as a spider's web. The design is both practical and beautiful. The troughs are decorated with low reliefs of curling vines. Every junction is marked by a small carved flower, as if the builders wanted the machinery to honor the plants it serves. The water within these channels is startlingly clear. We can trace its journey as it forks to feed each bed, each tree, each pot. Nothing is wasted here. Every drop has a purpose. In the center of the terrace, the channels converge into a circular pool edged with smooth white stone. The surface of the water reflects the bright sky above, interrupted now and then by the delicate rings of petals falling from the surrounding shrubs. Around the pool, low benches offer places to sit and watch the play of light on water, to feel the coolness that rises from its surface. From this vantage, we can see that the third terrace also acts as a crossroads. Paths lead toward quiet corners shaded by cypress and plane trees, while others wind upward toward the next level. In one shaded nook, a gardener kneels, tending to a bed of thyme and sage. The herbs release their scent into the air as he works, adding a new layer to the garden's perfume. Sharp, earthy, and clean. Moving along the outer edge of the terrace, we find another viewpoint over the city. Here the wall is lower, and beyond it, Babylon stretches in all directions. The rooftops gleam in the sun, and the ribbon of the Euphrates glints like a jewel as it winds past fields and villages. From this height, the noise of the city is softened to a faint murmur, a reminder of how far we've already ascended into this suspended world. As we turn away from the edge, our attention is drawn upward. Through the leaves, we catch sight of the next terrace, narrower, its retaining walls draped with cascades of green. Among the leaves, flashes of color hint at roses or bougainvillea blooming in the sun. The sound of flowing water from above is stronger here, a promise that the next level holds something even more abundant. The staircase to the fourth terrace begins discreetly, almost hidden behind a trellis, where grapevines twist upward, their leaves casting patterned shadows on the stone. Clusters of green grapes hang low, the skins taut, just beginning to soften toward ripeness. Passing beneath them, we can almost imagine the sweetness they will hold when the season turns. The climb is short but steep, the steps worn by time and countless feet. Halfway up, we pause to glance back through the vine leaves. The machinery is still visible, its slow, steady motion unbroken. It is a quiet reassurance. Whatever else changes in the gardens, the blooms, the colors, the scents, the lifeblood of water continues to rise. As we near the top, the scent in the air begins to shift again. The sharpness of herbs fades, replaced by something richer, warmer, the heavy sweetness of flowers that thrive in full sun. A faint breeze reaches us, carrying with it the cool mist of water falling nearby, just out of sight. One final step, and we arrive at the threshold of the fourth terrace. Before us is a blaze of color, a space where blossoms outnumber leaves, where fragrance seems almost visible in the air. The third terrace and its hidden engines fall away behind us, and we step forward into a level devoted entirely to beauty. The fourth terrace greets us in a rush of color, so vivid it feels almost unreal. Gone are the muted greens and the earthy browns of the lower levels. Here, blossoms spill across the space in every direction, their hues so intense they seem to drink in the sunlight and return it brighter still. Petals of crimson, orange, violet, and gold sway gently, each color catching the eye before yielding it to the next. It's as if the terrace has been painted by a master who knew every shade the human heart could crave. The fragrance in the air is richer here, a heady blend of rose, jasmine, and citrus blossom. It settles on the senses like warm silk, coaxing deep breaths. Some scents are familiar, the sweet honesty of lavender, the clean brightness of orange flowers, while others carry notes we can't name. Hints of lands far beyond Babylon, perhaps brought here by traders who crossed deserts and sailed seas. The path before us is narrower than those below, winding like a river through the floral abundance. On either side, roses climb wooden trellises, their blooms in full glory, petals spilling over each other in lush layers. Some are as pale as ivory, others so deep a red they seem almost black in the shadowed folds. Bees hum lazily among them, their wings catching tiny prisms of light. In the center of the terrace, a marble fountain rises from a circular pool. Water arcs from its tiered basins, falling in delicate sheets that sparkle like threads of glass in the sun. Around the fountain's edge, potted lemon and orange trees stand sentinel, their glossy leaves holding pockets of shade. Here and there, fruit hangs low enough to touch, their skins warm and fragrant, promising sweetness beneath their pebbled surfaces. The sound here is different, lighter, more playful, the constant chatter of water joining the gentle brush of petals against one another. Even the birds seem to sing more brightly here, flitting between branches and sipping from the fountain's edge. The combination of sound, scent, and color weaves a kind of spell, one that slows every step and quiets every thought. Toward the far side of the terrace, a trellis covered in white jasmine marks the entrance to a shaded alcove. Inside, a bench of pale stone curves gently, perfectly placed to frame a view of the terraces below. From here, the green waves of foliage roll downward, toward the city, each terrace distinct, yet blending seamlessly into the next. Beyond them, Babylon spreads wide, its rooftops glowing in the afternoon light, and beyond that, the river winds steadily toward the horizon. Sitting here, it is easy to imagine the queen herself, perhaps Amytas, resting in this very spot. In the stillness, we can almost see her fingers trailing along the stone bench. Hear the faint rustle of her silks, feel the way her gaze might have softened as she looked out over a garden made to soothe her longing for the mountains of her birth. This place was not just a marvel of engineering, it was an act of love layered into the roots and walls. Rising again, we follow the path as it curves behind the fountain. Here, beds of marigolds blaze in gold and amber, their petals dense and velvety. The scent is more pungent, a grounding counterpoint to the sweetness of the roses. Small stone markers at the corners of each bed bear inscriptions, perhaps the names of the plants, or blessings for those who tend them. The steps to the fifth terrace begin quietly, almost shyly, at the edge of the marigold beds. The stone here is shaded by the overhang of a nearby archway, its surface cool beneath our hands as we climb. The shift in scent is immediate. The floral perfume of the fourth terrace begins to fade, replaced by the green freshness of open grass and water. Halfway up, a small opening in the wall offers a final glimpse back over the terrace we're leaving behind. In this angled view, the roses seem to float in the air, their colors shimmering against the darker greens below. The fountain's spray catches the sunlight in a brief rainbow before it disappears into the basin. The image fixes itself in the mind like a painting. As we near the top of the stairs, the sound of the fountain recedes and is replaced by something softer, the whisper of wind moving over open ground. The air grows cooler again, carrying with it the faint scent of grass warmed by the sun. It is a cleaner scent, simpler and more spacious, as though the next terrace will open wide after the tight embrace of the floral paths. One last step brings us onto the fifth terrace, where green stretches in every direction, broken only by the still surfaces of shallow pools. Here, the gardens seem to exhale, offering a calm, open space after the intensity of the blooms below. The shift in mood is immediate, and we step forward into its quiet embrace. The fifth terrace opens up like a deep breath after a long climb. Where the terraces below were dense with flowers and trees, this level feels like a clearing in a mountain meadow, wide and restful. A soft carpet of grass stretches in gentle undulations, dotted with small clusters of lilies, whose petals glow pale against the green. The openness allows the sky to take a larger share of the view, and here the light falls evenly, warming the ground without the dappled interference of leaves. Along the edges of the terrace, low stone borders keep the grass in place and frame shallow pools of water. Each pool is edged with smooth river stones, some of them pale, some dark, each one rounded by the touch of water over centuries. The pools are so still that they mirror the sky perfectly, broken only by the slow ripple of a fish surfacing or the occasional fall of a leaf drifting down from a tree beyond. Tall date palms stand at measured intervals, their trunks leaning just enough to give each other space, their fronds whispering above in the breeze. The shade they cast is wide but light, shifting gently as the afternoon sun makes its slow descent. Between the palms, the scent is faintly sweet, and the air carries the cooler note of the water in the pools. Toward the center of the terrace, a pavilion stands, its open frame made of carved cedar, the wood polished to a soft sheen that glows in the sunlight. Vines have been encouraged to climb the supporting beams, curling around them in green spirals, their small blossoms lending a light, honeyed scent. Inside, a stone bench runs along the shaded side, perfectly placed to face the terrace and the view beyond. From the pavilion's bench, the city can be seen through breaks in the greenery. The rooftops of Babylon stretch toward the horizon, golden in the slanting light, while the Euphrates glimmers like a thread of metal in the distance. Between us and the river lie fields, roads, and the hum of life, all softened to a quiet haze by the distance. It is a view that makes the city seem both vast and small at once. But the pavilion offers another vantage point. Looking inward toward the heart of the gardens, we can see the quiet industry at work. Along the far wall, partly shaded by a row of cypress trees, more of the water-lifting mechanisms rise from hidden depths. The wooden wheels turn slowly, their movement steady and certain. As they feed the lifelines that allow the higher terraces to flourish, we step out of the pavilion and follow a path that skirts the edge of one pool, the grass underfoot soft and springy. The air here feels especially clean, carrying almost no trace of the floral perfumes from below. It is a place designed for pause, for letting the mind drift, for feeling the quiet weight of the day without urgency. The steps to the sixth terrace are tucked behind a screen of broad-leaved plants at the far corner. Their leaves shine with a faint gloss, and tiny beads of moisture cling to their surfaces, droplets that catch the light like a scattering of jewels. This cool dampness in the air is the first sign of what lies ahead. As we begin to climb, the sound changes. The whisper of palm fronds fades, replaced by a low, constant roar. The air grows cooler, fresher, touched with a fine mist that settles lightly on our skin. Each step brings us deeper into that sound, until it becomes the dominant presence, surrounding us from all sides. The staircase curves slightly, and between the plants we glimpse flashes of movement above. Not the motion of leaves, but the falling of water. It catches the light like glass, shifting from silver to white to gold as it descends. The scent of damp stone and fresh greenery grows stronger, filling the air around us. Near the top, the roar of water softens slightly, as if the walls here have been built to direct the sound. The light changes too, growing softer, more diffused, as though filtered through mist. The temperature has dropped noticeably, and it is easy to imagine that stepping onto the next terrace will feel like stepping into the cool of early morning, even though the day still burns beyond the walls. One final step, and the sixth terrace opens before us. Lush, shaded, and alive with the movement of water, the falls descend into a wide basin at its heart, sending up a fine spray that hangs in the air like a veil. The contrast with the stillness of the fifth terrace is striking, and we step forward into its refreshing embrace. The sixth terrace greets us with a sensation as much as a sight, the immediate embrace of cool, moist air against the skin, a relief after the warmth of the climb. Waterfall spills from a high lip of stone at the terrace's far side. Its flow wide and steady, breaking into countless droplets before it strikes the basin below. The water's constant motion sends up a fine mist that hangs in the air, softening the edges of everything it touches. The basin is a generous oval, carved from smooth stone worn satiny by centuries of contact with water. Around its rim, moss grows in thick green carpets, the delicate texture broken here and there by clusters of tiny white flowers. The sound of the water's fall is full and steady, the kind that sinks into the bones. Its rhythm steady enough to lull even the most restless mind. Paths branch outward from the basin, winding through plantings that thrive in this damp, shaded environment. Ferns with fronds like green lace fanned out close to the ground, while above them, broad-leaved plants catch droplets in the cups of their leaves. Vines climb freely here, some stretching upward to the terrace above, others cascading downward to frame the space in living drapery. The air carries the scent of wet stone and the fresh and metallic note of clean water mingled with the green fragrance of living leaves. It feels like the breath of a forest stream transported here into the heart of the city. Every sound, from the trickle of water down narrow channels to the soft rustle of leaves, is tempered by the constant presence of the waterfall. We follow one of the paths that loops toward the terrace's edge. Through a gap in the foliage, the city is visible far below. From here, Babylon looks quieter, more still, as if its bustling life is momentarily hushed beneath the higher hum of the gardens. The Euphrates curves slowly in the distance, its surface glinting like a long, unbroken blade. Near the viewpoint, a small bench is built into the wall, shaded by the overhang of a palm whose fronds reach far beyond the terrace. Sitting here, the waterfall is heard from behind, its sound wrapping around us in a way that makes the rest of the world seem to dissolve. Even the wind feels gentler here, slowed by the thick growth between us and the open air. Moving on, we pass under an arch woven from two intertwining vines, their flowers pale lavender and faintly fragrant. Beyond the arch, a secondary channel carries water from the main basin to smaller pools scattered through the terrace. These pools feed patches of moss, reeds, and flowering plants, each one a micro-garden within the whole. Gardeners move quietly here, their footsteps muffled on the damp earth. One kneels beside a bed of lilies, adjusting the stones that direct water toward their roots. Another gently ties a vine to a trellis, training it upward to catch more light. Their movements are unhurried, guided by the steady, patient rhythm of this place. The steps to the 7th terrace begin where the waterfall meets the basin. To one side, a carved staircase curves upward, its edge lined with plants that thrive in the constant spray. Delicate ferns, small wildflowers, and patches of moss that glow almost luminous in the filtered light. The stone is cool and slightly damp under the hand, but firm beneath the feet. As we climb, the sound of the waterfall grows fainter, replaced gradually by the movement of wind through leaves. The air warms, carrying with it the scent of sun-warmed wood and the faint spice of herbs. Through small openings in the wall beside the steps, sunlight streams in angled beams, catching the edges of the plants in a soft halo. Near the top, the stair turns sharply, revealing a glimpse of silver-green leaves moving in the light above. The fragrance of rosemary and lavender reaches us, carried by the wind, sharper and drier than the lush scents below. The change in mood is immediate. From the damp embrace of shade to the open invitation of sunlight, the final step brings us into the 7th terrace, where rows of olive trees stretch out in the bright air, their leaves shimmering like coins in the breeze. Beyond them, the open sky seems closer than ever, and we step forward into its warmth. Stepping fully onto the 7th terrace feels like emerging from a cool forest path into a sunlit hillside. The air here is drier, touched by the warmth of the afternoon, and it carries with it the faint resinous perfume of olive trees. These trees stand in careful rows, their trunks twisted and gnarled from age, their silver-green leaves shimmering in the sunlight like the surface of a moving stream. The breeze plays through them with a soft, papery rustle, different from the deep, sighing swells of the palms below. Between the rows of olive trees, the earth is planted with herbs that thrive in the open sun. Lavender with its dusky purple blooms, rosemary with its fine green needles, and thyme forming low mats that release fragrance underfoot. Walking along the path, the scents mingle and shift with every step, sometimes sharper and sometimes sweeter, always fresh and grounding. The terrace is arranged so that light and air move freely through it. Low stone walls form the planting beds, each one holding the soil in place while guiding the roots to the water channels beneath. Along the outer wall, narrow gutters carry water to each bed, and the sound of it is barely audible, a soft undercurrent beneath the whisper of leaves. In the center of the terrace stands a large circular cistern, its stone rim worn smooth by the touch of many hands over the years. Water flows into it from a concealed pipe, its stream constant and clear, before spilling over into channels that lead downward to feed the terraces below. This is the high point of the garden's lifeline, the place where the long journey of the water, raised from the river far below, reaches its summit before beginning its slow descent through every level. Standing here, the view outward is unmatched. Babylon lies far beneath us, its rooftops gleaming in the sun, the straight lines of its streets softened by the haze of distance. The Euphrates cuts a gleaming path through the fields, and beyond it, the land stretches to the edge of sight, fading into the pale gold of the horizon. The scale of it all is humbling, a reminder of how high we've climbed and how far the gardens stand above the ordinary world. The air moves steadily here, unbroken by the dense walls of foliage that sheltered the lower terraces. It carries the warmth of the sun, along with the earthy scents of herbs and wood. Every now and then, a stronger gust will shake the olive branches, sending a glittering wave through the leaves as they turn their pale undersides to the light. Toward one corner of the terrace, a small stone bench rests in the shade of a particularly large olive tree. Its trunk is thick and spiraled, its bark fissured like the lines in an old map. Sitting here, the sun filters through the leaves in thin spears of light. The scent of the tree's fruit, faintly sweet, faintly bitter, drifts on the air. Beyond the olive grove, the path bends toward a cluster of taller plants, slender cypresses, and flowering shrubs that mark the base of the next staircase. The cypresses stand like green columns, their form precise and upright, framing the ascent to the 8th terrace. As we draw closer, the sound changes again. The soft whisper of olive leaves fades, replaced by a higher, lighter note, the sound of wind moving over grass. It's an airy, open sound, one that hints at more space above, perhaps even a view of the sky unbroken by tree or trellis. The steps themselves are narrow and gently curved, their edges softened by tufts of grass and small wildflowers that have found homes in the cracks. The fragrance here is lighter than below, touched by the sweetness of open fields rather than the concentrated perfume of cultivated gardens. Halfway up, the view opens suddenly through a gap in the wall. Here, the terrace below is visible in its entirety, the pattern of olive trees forming a textured quilt of silver and green. The cistern gleams faintly in the sun, and beyond it the city spreads out like a living mosaic. With a final step, we leave the shade of the cypresses behind and emerge into the 8th terrace, a wide expanse of waving grasses and scattered wildflowers, open to the wind and the sun, like a meadow suspended between earth and sky. The first sensation on stepping into the 8th terrace is the openness, a sense of space so wide and unbounded that for a moment it feels as though we've stepped out of the city entirely. The wind here is stronger than on the lower terraces, flowing without resistance across a surface covered in tall golden-green grasses. They sway in unison, bending and rising again with a movement as fluid as the surface of a lake. The sound is a steady whisper, rising and falling in waves, carrying with it the scent of sun-warmed earth. The grasses themselves are varied, some fine and feathery, their seed heads catching the light like spun silver, others thicker, with stalks that move heavily in the wind. Between them, wildflowers have made their home, scattering spots of color across the green. Red poppies stand like small flames against the backdrop of grass. Yellow daisies turn their faces toward the sun. Blue cornflowers dot the field like fragments of a summer sky. The path here is less formal, winding naturally as though it had been worn into the grass over many years by slow, thoughtful footsteps. The edges of the path are soft, blending into the meadow, so that it feels as though the garden and the trail are one. Small stone markers appear at intervals, each engraved with a pattern of leaves or flowers, perhaps to guide the visitor gently toward the terrace's heart. The air is drier here than on the lower levels, but not harsh. It carries the brightness of the sun, along with a freshness that comes from constant movement. Every breath feels clean, touched with the faint sweetness of the flowers. The soundscape is almost entirely natural, the wind in the grass, the occasional call of a bird circling overhead, and the distant murmur of water from the terraces below. In the center of the terrace, a small spring bubbles up from a stone opening, its water clear and cold. It gathers briefly in a shallow basin before spilling into a narrow stream that winds away into the grass. This stream is lined with small, smooth pebbles, their damp surfaces glistening in the sunlight. The grass near its banks grows thicker, lusher, with more flowers mingled in among the blades. We pause at the spring, kneeling to dip a hand into the water. It is startlingly cool, a reminder of the river far below and the ingenious network that carries its lifeblood to every corner of the gardens. The water has traveled so far, lifted by patient machinery and guided by unseen channels, only to emerge here in the simplest of forms, a spring in a field of grass. From the spring, the path begins to climb again, this time toward a more secluded part of the terrace. As we approach the far edge, the grasses grow shorter. giving way to clusters of flowering shrubs that mark the base of the next staircase. Their blooms are pale white cream, soft pink, and they release a delicate fragrance that drifts ahead of us, light and airy, like the terrace itself. The steps to the 9th terrace are narrower here, built of smaller stones fitted together in a gentle curve. They're partly shaded by the shrubs, whose branches arch overhead in places to form natural gateways. The light filters through petals and leaves, dappling the path in soft patterns. As we climb, the wind softens, shielded by the walls above. The air grows stiller, warmer, and more scented, carrying hints of blossoms we have not yet seen. The sound of the grasses fades behind us, replaced by the quiet hum of a more sheltered space ahead. Halfway up, a gap in the wall offers a final view of the 8th terrace. From here, the meadow stretches like a green and gold ocean beneath the sky, its surface rippling with the wind's invisible hand. Beyond it, the terraces fall away toward the city, and beyond that, the land rolls outward to meet the far horizon. As we near the top of the stairs, the scent grows richer, layered with the perfumes of plants grown for their rarity and beauty. The air feels different, expectant, as though this next level holds something more precious, more deliberately arranged than the wild openness we leave behind. The final step brings us onto the 9th terrace, where the paths are narrow, the plantings intricate, and the air filled with the quiet dignity of a place meant for contemplation. The summit lies just above, but here the gardens seem to pause, as if inviting us to rest before we take the final climb. The 9th terrace feels like a gallery in nature's museum. Here the layout is deliberate, each planting given space to display itself fully. Narrow stone paths wind between raised beds of rare and delicate plants, orchids with petals shaped like tiny wings, lilies as white as polished ivory, irises with deep velvety throats of purple and gold. The air is dense with perfume, but not overwhelming. It feels curated, balanced, as though each scent was chosen to complement the others. The beds are bordered by low walls of pale limestone, their surfaces etched with faint patterns of vines and flowers. Along the edges, clay pots hold plants that could not take root directly in the terrace soil. Miniature citrus trees, clusters of aloe with their sculpted, spiked leaves, and delicate ferns whose fronds tremble in the slightest breeze. Some of these pots are painted in intricate designs, the colors soft from years in the sun. Small fountains appear at intervals, each shaped differently. One carved from a single block of marble, another lined with mosaic tiles in shades of blue and green. The water in these fountains flows quietly, its soft sound blending with the occasional rustle of leaves overhead. It is a more intimate music than the roar of the waterfall below, a gentle counterpoint to the grandeur of the garden's ascent. In one shaded corner, a bench of carved cedar rests beneath an overhanging pergola. The pergola is draped in flowering vines whose blossoms hang like clusters of bells, pale pink and faintly fragrant. Sitting here, the view is inward, toward the intricacy of the plantings, the interplay of leaf and bloom, water and stone. It feels like a space for private thought, away from the sweeping vistas that dominate the other terraces. Yet even here, the presence of the city is never entirely gone. Through a narrow opening between the plants, we catch sight of Babylon far below, its walls and towers softened by distance, the slow curve of the Euphrates reflecting the last light of day. The contrast between the ordered beauty here and the vast sprawl beyond is striking, one shaped by human hands into harmony, the other alive with the unpredictability of daily life. The staircase to the final terrace begins at the terrace's farthest edge, flanked by 2 cypress trees that rise like dark green columns. The steps are narrower here, as though asking for a slower, more mindful climb. The stone is worn smooth, and the air shifts as we ascend, carrying the brightness of the open sky above. Halfway up, the wind finds us again, fresher and stronger, bringing with it the sense of open air rather than enclosed gardens. The sound of the fountains fades, replaced by a growing stillness. It's broken only by the movement of leaves and the distant, softened sounds of the terraces below. As we step onto the 10th terrace, the horizon opens fully. The space here is smaller than we might expect, but it feels limitless because of the view it commands. The walls are low, allowing an unbroken sweep of sight in every direction. The city of Babylon lies spread out beneath us like a living map, the river gleaming as it threads its way toward the horizon. Beyond it, fields and deserts stretch on until they dissolve into the haze of the sky. The plantings here are sparse but symbolic. A few carefully chosen trees. Perhaps cypress for longevity, olive for peace, pomegranate for abundance. Their roots grow deep into the terrace's soil, fed by the same ingenious system that has sustained every level below. A single stone bench faces west, positioned to watch the sun sink behind the far horizon. Sitting there, the wind moves freely around you, carrying the warmth of the day away and leaving the air cool and clear. It is at this height, with the city and river and desert all before you, that the questions return. Did this place truly stand here in history? Or only in the imagination of those who told its story? No excavation has found its stones. No Babylonian text has described it. Some ancient historians placed it here. Others spoke of similar gardens in Nineveh, far to the north. Perhaps the truth has been lost, or perhaps it was never fixed to begin with. And yet, as we sit in the wind at the garden's summit, the reality of the place feels unquestionable. We have walked its terraces, heard its water, felt its shade and its sun. Even if the physical stones are lost to time, the garden lives on in the memory of those who picture it. In every traveler who has imagined a green mountain rising from the desert. In this way, the hanging gardens are indestructible. When we finally rise from the bench, the sun is low, casting the terraces below in bands of gold and shadow. We begin the slow descent, retracing our steps through each level, carrying the scents, the colors, and the sounds with us. By the time we pass under the last arch and return to the streets of Babylon, the sky is deep with twilight. The garden is behind us now, but its image remains vivid, a wonder not bound by stone, but by the enduring power of the mind to dream.